Getting good at Overwatch 2 really is not all that complicated, but it can be kind of hard. Understanding what I mean by that, at least how I'm going to use those terms in this video, is not only crucial for understanding Overwatch 2, but also human psychology and improvement as a whole, and it's a big trap for humans that we often fall into. The difference between complicated and hard, at least the way that I'm going to use them, is complicated is something that has a lot of steps, may be tricky to pick up, but an application and execution at a high level is not all that difficult. For example, a cartwheel has a lot of different placement of the hands, and placement of the feet, and tightening of the core, and having the general athleticism to pull it off. It can be a little tricky if you've never done something like that a lot as a kid. However, once you get it, and there really isn't a whole lot more to it. However, let's say lifting 600 pounds off of the floor is very simple in execution. Grab it and lift it up. But doing so is extremely difficult and requires a very specific and very trained skill set that takes a long time to develop. And I really think Overwatch 2 falls into that category. I think Overwatch 2 as a game is relatively complex, but getting good to the point of understanding that game is really not all that hard. In fact, I'd describe getting good at Overwatch 2 as really simple with just 4 steps. Taking care of your IRL schedule in terms of sleep, diet, nutrition, exercise, making sure that you're taking the time to take breaks, playing the game in competitive as much as you possibly can and as consistently as you possibly can, making sure that you have a consistent warm-up schedule with your peripherals, making sure that you have a good monitor, good sensitivity, spending time at deathmatch, and then finally, simply just going into the game with some goals to practice. And that's really all it takes. Go into game, warm up, practice with a good mentality, and play consistently in ranked. That's all there really is to it. Now, we can talk a little bit about hero pools. We could also talk about playing the meta here and there, and obviously game understanding as well. But a lot of those things come with time and just come with just sheer practice. In fact, I know so many people that more often than not overthink things and focus on the micro details when the reality is they just don't play the game, or they just don't sleep, or they just don't have the right mentality, or they just get lazy. And see, that's the trap. You see, we live in a society that has a focus on diet pills. We have a focus on supplementary exercises. We have a focus on little things like aim trainers and get-rich-quick books, and all the little details of ways of cheating the system, or really just the focus on the peripherals. How many times have you seen advertisements for the aim trainer that's going to completely change your game and make you Grandmaster instantly, right? How many times have you seen the diet pill or the new supplementary exercise that's going to make you like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? And the reality is, what made Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is just picking things up over and over and over and over again and eating well and also illegal steroids. But regardless, it's really not that complicated. You see, here's the thing with niche. Here's the thing with supplementary and etc. exercises and just things in general that fall into that category. They're niche. They're not going to be the bread and butter of how you improve. If all you do all day long is watch VOD reviews and apply tips and tricks and look for this and that, some of those things might be very applicable and some of them might be very helpful, but they're never going to take the place of just simply logging on and playing the game. They're never going to take the place of just simply having a good mentality for improvement. For example, if you spend 3 hours every single day focusing on your breathing and your meditation, sometimes that's a little bit overkill for just simply having a good mentality, not worrying about your teammates and focusing on yourself. Sometimes the simple answer is the correct answer. But the question is why do we, when it comes to Overwatch 2, and really just life in general, overcomplicate sometimes the most basic things? For example, if I'm looking to lift up a heavy box, do I really need to be spending hours upon hours with supplementary exercises? Why is that so attractive? Why are we as humans so obsessed with the niche, the details, and the shortcuts? And I think the easy answer is we want shortcuts. But I don't actually think that's the full story. You see, I understand that people would like to think that if there is a get-rich-quick idea, that would be the easy way out and that more people are going to lean into that. And I do think that's definitely true for most of the time and most of the cases, whether it's fitness or Overwatch. But I also think there's another aspect of it as well, and I've fallen victim to this as well. It's interesting, guys. Feeling like there's something that undiscovered, unyet solved, or maybe there's something that might give you a little bit more of an edge over the opponents just because of something that they don't know yet. That's definitely appealing. If I'm looking to get into, let's say, sprint training or weightlifting, and there's one lift that I can do that gives me an advantage over the others, I'm not just interested in that for the shortcut to make my life easier, but it's also just fun to research that. It's fun to know that. And I think we as humans are always drawn to something that is maverick, something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, something that's a little bit unique, maybe a take that some people aren't really interested in. For example, if I said the hot take for you is actually that you need to have your sensitivity, that will make your aim immediately better, right? Well, that's not necessarily true whatsoever. But I definitely piqued your interest, didn't it? It definitely sparked your interest for a brief moment. Like, wow, I wonder what would happen if that is. And I think that's part of human nature is we're always curious. We always want to know, is there a new or better way of doing things? And the unfortunate thing, if we spend too much time focusing on those niches, then we often miss the forest for the trees and end up really leaving behind the main part of our training, the simple stuff. So what's to take away from this? I don't think that there's a whole lot to take away from this just outside of being aware of the human tendency to chase butterflies a little bit. It's what makes us unique. It's what makes things fun. And I definitely think there's value in the niche when applied properly. However, when it comes down to it, if you really want to get good at Overwatch, if you really want to get in shape, if you want to get stronger, if you want to get smarter, if you want to be better spoken, a better writer, a better communicator, somebody that understands some aspect of your life in a better aspect, if you want to be a better husband, a better wife, a better friend, then do it more. Put more effort into it. It really isn't that complicated. It's just not always super flashy and not always super fun. I remember a long time ago, I always wanted to be able to dunk basketball. I wanted to be able to jump higher. And I realized that I spent a lot of time looking for jump supplementary exercises and doing a lot of really weird exercises. And the best thing that ever happened to my vertical jump was jumping. And jumping frequently, 3 or 4 times a week. Not a crazy volume, just 25, 30 jumps, a couple of different techniques, but really wasn't that complicated. I just jumped a lot, and I got to be able to jump higher. Our bodies and our minds are adaptable, and we put themselves in certain situations, and they'll adapt and learn that skill. So if you want to get better at Overwatch, play Overwatch. If you want to rank up on Ana, play Ana. Sometimes it's not all that complicated. Everybody, I think, has a specific niche or a specific problem that we all struggle with. And I think that's one of the things that I try to do with my coaching videos or even just my etc. educational videos is I try to target specific niches for different people who may be having struggles, whether it's the 2-fight rule or whether it's a mentality tip or whether it's an ELERE positioning tip that may apply to your gameplay. All of those are going to be helpful for a lot of different people. But for most people, it's really not necessary for them to rank up. And in fact, if they spent the time that they spent watching streams and watching pros and just actually played the game or VOD reviewed themselves, they'd improve a lot faster. So use the niche when it's necessary. But if you really, really, really want to just improve at the game, play the game. Focus on the basics, the ones that I mentioned at the beginning. That being said, if you are in it for the entertainment, and I have found this with many skills, it is okay to study. For example, I spend a lot of time studying strategy of games and reading about topics that I don't really apply myself to just because I find processing and digesting and learning about that information more fun than actually spending time in the game itself. That might be you. If that's you, that's totally fine, but it's not going to make you better at Overwatch.